This is Bean to Barstool, a podcast that looks at the intersections of craft chocolate, craft beer, and other artisan drinks. My name is David Nilsen. I'm a professional drinks writer, an advanced cicerone, the author of Pairing Beer and Chocolate, and the creator and host of this show. The music for this episode is by my dear friend, indie folk musician Anna P.S. You can find out more about Anna's music in the show notes or on annapsmusic.com. You can find links and information about our guests in the show notes as well. I hope you enjoy this episode of Bean to Barstool. Hey everyone, today on Bean to Barstool we're talking with Ava J. Holmes and Fiorella Richter, the founders of Women of Cacao, a global network that works to honor and support the past, present, and future of women in cacao farming and chocolate making, culminating each year in a summit that features speakers and workshops to celebrate and bolster this community. As you'll hear from Ava and Fiorella, everyone is welcome at the Women of Cacao Summit regardless of gender identity, but the goal is to highlight the role women have always held and still hold as leaders in the cacao and chocolate fields. In our conversation today, Ava and Fiorella speak to the rich history of women in cacao and chocolate, their own journeys to craft chocolate, and what folks can expect at this year's summit, being held almost entirely virtually September 17th to 20th. You can head to the show notes for this episode to find links to learn more about Women of Cacao, including info on the summit if you'd like to attend. Scanning through the list of past speakers, I was thrilled to see so many past Bean to Barstool guests, including Estelle Tracy, Sarah Barrett, Mackenzie Rivers, Sana Forsland, and Raven Hanna. I'm looking forward to this year's summit, so without further ado, let's hear from Ava and Fiorella. Ava and Fiorella, welcome to Bean to Barstool. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Well, at the outset, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what Women of Cacao is all about?
Sure. Yeah, Ava, you can start.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very happy to be here. This is our third year going into our signature summit, and we have really blossomed into an international network of women all across the cacao and chocolate sectors. So as an organization, this is the core of who we are. We are an international community of people who have experiences and stories in all areas of this industry, and I would say community even more accurately. And it's just, for me, super inspiring to be able to go into a room of people and have almost every part of the industry represented, from farmers and really old 80, 90, 100-year-old wisdom keepers that have stories to share about cacao, also chocolate makers, middle women or middlemen. We have people on the marketing side, people on the machinery side of things, and it's just amazing to have a conversation that in a conference maybe is impossible because of the borders and the cost that it is to some people to get to some of these events. And it's having this virtual community allows us to be communicating across sectors. So we're here to invite people into the conversation, to inspire people into new collaborations, and also just witness and hear from each other and what we want to learn and support each other's deeper connection with cacao and chocolate.
Why don't you each share a little bit of your own background and involvement in cacao and craft chocolate? Fiorella, why don't we start with you?
Yes, sure. Well, I started with cacao back 6 years ago, like from the plant, from the agricultural part, because I'm based in a country of origin, which is a producer country, it's Peru. And I was more in the fields, connecting with nature, connecting with the different genetic varieties and the morphology and the way of how you need to cultivate it. And then step by step, I will pass from this to how to process the beans to create a chocolate that has different, a beautiful profile flavor, can that you can notice the differences of a really good fine chocolate versus just a regular chocolate bar that it tastes more like a candy, right? So this has been like a path for about 6 years now, and I personally enjoy most the culture and the history, as well as the crafting part. But there is different traditions in how to make a cacao paste or how to make a chocolate that I really have enjoyed remembering and investigating about. So my relationship has developed more from the fields, from the cacao pod, from the nature, from the cacao plant into the craft chocolate industry that has more like a broader audience, no? Like we can reach, I think we discussed this with Ava, like the part of cacao, which is more feminine, and the part of chocolate, which is like the more masculine. But the two worlds needs to connect more. And this is part of the essence of Women of Cacao online community.
Ava, how about you? Tell us about your background in cacao and craft chocolate.
Yeah, thank you. It's a little bit multifaceted. I think, like everyone, I grew up loving chocolate, and I was working in fashion before my chapter of working in chocolate, and had been doing fundraising through galas all over in Paris, in New York, in London, in Seattle. And we went down on a trip to visit one of the recipients of these funds in the rainforest, a dear friend, Samantha Zwicker, and her project of conservation. And it was my first time that I saw virgin Amazonian forest burning. And I said, this isn't like why? Why is all this forest burning? And a lot of that was because of cacao. They were slash and burning virgin rainforest in order to cultivate cacao in a very monoculture way. I said, how can we love chocolate so much? And so my focus for a couple of months, my plan was to take one season off of Fashion Week planning, like production, and to go back a season later, but that season ended up turning into about 8 years. Spent accidentally, I'm skipping a couple pieces here, but I basically spent about 8 years in the lower Peruvian Amazon of Madre de Dios, and we established a project to bring back local, varieties of native cacao into plantations. A lot of the cacao that was being grown was obviously hybridized in a region of Peru called Vrai. And while some of those are very productive and even flavorful, they're not the most ideal for sustainability. We started with this project of shade densities, of how much permaculture can we really reintroduce to these more commercial varieties. And then we moved into bringing back the native varieties into farms and kind of have a hybrid of both. And over a couple of years, that turned into a center, which is now Cacao Center. So we have a center of, really it's a center of conservation, but all through the lens of chocolate and cacao, really to capture people's attention, because who doesn't love chocolate? But then once we invite them to taste chocolate with us, or to do a chocolate making workshop, or to come visit the field, it ends up being a lot more about the holistic system of sustainable agriculture and the balance of conservation of the land and the ecology, and also supporting indigenous communities. And so it ended up being kind of like an overlapping of sustainable agriculture with even working with the local artisans, which kind of brought in my fashion interest from before. So I came at it from a very environmental perspective, or conservation of culture and of ecology, and found it a great conversation starter for that. I stepped away from living there full time about 2 years ago. Now I go back and forth. And Fiorella and I met and said, how can we, expand our world of what we know in a very particular niche area of Peru, different regions, but being there. And we started connecting with other women. And at first it was a very small conversation of a couple hundred of us. And that now has grown into a couple of thousand of us who are in this open dialogue and open educational exchange around cacao and chocolate.
Great. Well, why don't you tell us a little more about that, of how Women of Cacao developed, and how these events, and I understand you have different local chapters and things like that, like how that all got rolling.
Yeah, we started 2 years ago in 2024 with an online summit because we want to gather all these women that are experts on different areas of cacao, from history to ritual to crafting the best chocolate or having the best chocolate recipe. And we wanted to have a clear goal of bridging these two worlds, because some of them are more oriented into the process of only seeing the bean, right? The cacao bean, and others are fully more oriented on the agricultural part. So our intention was to really connect those and have an open dialogue and see what are the different perspectives and views people have or know about cacao and chocolate, and even beyond that, like what is the relationship with nature, what is the relationship with their history or ancestors or myths, or more. The more we bring more people in an open dialogue, the more we found themes that we felt fascinated to hear about, and especially the part of us being women turned this to be a very safe space. So I think that's why we have a lot of more connection or demand for continuing doing these summits and online workshops every month, because the people feel very safe and open to share their perspectives and their own beliefs and feelings regarding how is their situation working with cacao or chocolate in their country. So I think like it's a beautiful community, it's a beautiful network that we have both built and has built as well organically. And Ava can also add some more of these beautiful experiences with these women.
I just wanted to add that the programming that we offer, the summit, the workshops, are open to everyone. The choice that we made to feature women as speakers was, as Fiorella mentioned, a way of empowering the voices that have been behind cacao and chocolate historically since the beginning of time, as we'll talk about in a moment, a little bit of the history of women in chocolate, and in modern time have shifted to what is a very common part of the gender disparity in most industries. So we are looking at ways to empower female executives, female leadership, female voices to a little bit balance out the space that has, like many other industries, been imbalanced in recent times. But as we'll also learn, women have a very unique relationship to cacao and chocolate, and so a little bit honoring that. But I also just want to reiterate that it is open to everyone to participate in, men, all ages, to people who don't even work in cacao and chocolate. I think it's really amazing when people from the culinary space come in, or people from the wellness space come in, or people from technology come in. We even have people from mining, which is a very extractive industry and very, not ecologically friendly, but even to be able to maintain a controversial conversation between the relationship of sustainable versus non-sustainable cacao growing, and then even maybe sustainable versus non-sustainable mining, like things like this that are very controversial, we welcome the discussion around disparities across countries, representation of origin, representation of women, representation of different sectors of our society that often get underrepresented.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that history and tradition that you've both referred to. I know obviously we've got a lot of cultures represented historically in that, but broadly, talk a little bit about the role of women in cacao farming, chocolate making, all aspects of this historically.
I like to think of the history of chocolate from a botanical perspective that started in the very beginning of time, in the very beginning of the history of plants. I like to think of it as a lovemaking of when the first flowers came to meet the first insects, and how this evolution created the abundance and the beauty and the diversity that we have in nature. I feel taking humans out of that very first relationship with cacao and chocolate gives it the right place in history, or shall we say her story, our story, because it reminds us that it is deeply interconnected with the evolution of all beings and all species. Then, of course, we have, as Fiorella will probably mention in a moment, the most recent studies around the earliest interaction that we know of between humans and cacao. At first, the historical timeline was placed in Mesoamerica about 4,000 years ago, but we now know, of course, as of 2018, that it's at least 5,500 years old, and the earliest remnants that we know of were in a site in Ecuador. However, there's a lot of work being done in a site on the border of Peru and Ecuador, Huacamonte Grande, which Fiorella is more connected with than I, so she will speak to this. And it is potentially pushing the timeline back a few thousand years even earlier. So just to say that this botanical story unfolding eventually led to people in the Amazon region beginning to work with cacao in a ritualistic way, in a sacred way, and then that slowly spread into Mesoamerica to the traditions that we still know are alive today through oral traditions, through glyphs, through myths. We know through the Berber people and the Mayan people today how it was used for many generations.
Yeah, about 15 years ago, or maybe less, 12 years ago, we believe that the origin of cacao was traced back into the Mayan and Middle America, Mesoamerica region. But this changed with a scientific publication on a French magazine on 2019 with the findings on this archaeological site in north of Peru, in South Ecuador, that belong to a culture that's called Monte Grande or Chinchipe Marañón. And this is linked directly with symbology of a woman, no? Because all the sacred symbols or icons that this archaeological site has are connected with the femininity. So historically, I would say also through archaeology, cacao has a connection with women or femininity, no? So this is good to be aware of in the way how we relate with cacao and chocolate, and what is the role of women historically in that line. Yes, in the past, in these cultures, cacao and plants are associated with their cultural and spiritual approach. So we definitely see cacao as a connector to them in their worlds, in their cosmologies. And it's important to remember this and to be aware of how plants are quite sacred for these nations, no? Back 5,000 years ago.
Well, let's fast forward to the present day and talk about the role of women in cacao and craft chocolate. What has changed? What still needs to change? What are we seeing there?
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone. Gravel Road Brewing Company in downtown Middletown, Ohio, just south of Dayton, is brewing great beer and offering a full calendar of food trucks and fun events. Located in a former industrial building that's full of character, Gravel Road has a small, cozy bar space and a larger, family-friendly taproom area with a pool table and games. Head brewer Dan Loro is passionate about historical brewing traditions, so you'll often find styles like Munich Helles and Kentucky Common on tap, but yes, there's a hazy IPA too, if that's your preference. And Gravel Road now has a cask cellar and serve cask-style pours from a beer engine for several of their beers, so ask about what's on cask when you're there. You can say hello to Chicken Nugget, Gravel Road's resident brewery cat, who even has his own Instagram account. If you live in Cincinnati or the Miami Valley, or you're just passing through, head down to Gravel Road and check out this excellent brewery. And thanks to Gravel Road for sponsoring Final Gravity and Bean to Barstool.
Well, there is many different phases of women nowadays working with cacao and chocolate and different realities. That's what I mean. So, we can have a comparison. I can talk mostly from South America, specifically from Peru, and how this reality is. There is a lot more initiatives of supporting cacao farmers to preserve the original cacao varieties, or even giving them the chance to cultivate more as a sustainable work. Because, here also in the regions of Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, we have the plantations of coca, which it's danger somehow to these populations for the narco traffic reality. So cacao production becomes an ally, as a social ally to maintain them or give them a sustainable work, and not be in the areas of um, terrorism or danger. Whereas other regions in the world, such as Africa, and Eva can also add a little bit more, women still need to be more empowered or become more free in trading their own cacao beans or farms, because they usually, the countries that produces more cacao in this continent are Ghana and Ivory Coast, and all their ways of selling their cacao needs to go through the government or through a government policy. So it's a different approach. So yeah, I think we need to find a way to connect this gap and make the value of the woman be the same.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the women and families who are on the Ivory Coast representing the large part of the cacao workforce, because the men are also out doing other jobs and the farm becomes part of the domestic responsibilities, are a very, very, very small percent of the landowners, or even the recipients of the majority of the cacao funds. Since the beginning of the cacao industry, as we know it, since the colonialization of cacao, essentially, since Europeans first brought their slaves to South Africa and later brought cacao to the Ivory Coast, we have seen this male-dominated dynamic, and the women and the families see very little of the little profit that there is. And so there is a lot of economic disparity, and there's a lot of gender disparity, a lot of age disparity. The kids are often put in this labor force instead of going to school. And there are so many women, also people, who speak to this. Carla Martin, obviously, is a huge advocate, as she is an anthropologist and advocate in this space. Also, Felipe did an incredible film that we got to screen last year about the modern state of cacao. I believe it was called
Reclaiming Cocoa.
Reclaiming Cocoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So within the Women of Cacao space, we have a lot of people who speak more extensively to this, and also like Caroline Lubers, the founder of Chocoa Festival, and also Wink, another organization of cacao and chocolate, a little bit more industry oriented for women. She speaks the statistics of leadership in the industry and how it is still reflective of the larger disparity of women in leadership. It's less than 30%. I think it was like 20 something percent of leadership. So in the modern day, programs either by governments or nonprofits or grassroots like we are to empower women, as we are seeing, is very effective across different South American regions that have received this support for families and for women artisans, women cacao farmers, to organize and be in leadership. We've seen, I cannot express how much it brings me joy to go to Peru and see all of these products that are actually from the farmers themselves or from people who are very close to the land. I feel like it's the most beautiful diversity of products made at origin, and it's one of the most potent, rich places to really experience chocolate, in my opinion. And there's the Salon of Chocolat coming up in Lima, so if you haven't been to that one yet, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
How about on the maker side here in North America or in Europe? What are we seeing in terms of the involvement of women? Do you happen to know offhand, like what percentage of chocolate makers or chocolate company owners are women?
I do think it's a little more level in North America specifically. The stats that I shared earlier that Caroline Lubers originally presented were in Europe. However, I do think there is a disparity. I can't remember the exact stats. I think there actually needs to be an updated study on this. There isn't an actualized study. I do think that Carla Martin's organization comes closest to that. Their organization is International Chocolate and Cacao Research. So they are taking the role of coming up with the stats around the industry. I do think it's still uneven, but I do think it's a little better. I actually just, as a not knowing the statistics exactly, but just as an observer at the different chocolate festivals and events, I see that it is more, at least just from an experiential standpoint, there's a lot of female cacao owners, craft chocolate owners, and we just did a presentation last week that is a recording with Cocoa Town about women influencers across history, which is really fun, both mythological and politicians and royalty. And we brought that into modern day and some of the beautiful chocolate makers and people that we looked up to in the world of craft chocolate, a lot of them being in the US. And just as a fun fact, the first female chocolatier in the US was in Pennsylvania. And also the wife of Hershey's, Kitty Hershey. They were like the two first female influencers in the craft chocolate movement here in the US. And I personally look up to the team behind Dandelion Chocolate and all of the people who put their heart and soul into creating the Making Chocolate book, and that covers the last 50 years of history in the US. So those are some good places to learn more too.
I think this is especially interesting because just culturally speaking, it feels like the perception of chocolate is very feminine, at least here in North America. And yet you have this disparity on the production and ownership side. And it's just this like flip-flopped thing in terms of how it's presented to the public versus what happens behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And I do think that, you know, as we said, historically, cacao has been more feminine in a more ritualistic context. However, once you press it between cacao butter and cacao powder, or once you temper it into a bar and then package it, you almost like masculinize the plant. You structure it. It's like from a more, we've had this discussion before kind of accidentally between people who work in this more wellness space with cacao and people who work in the craft chocolate space. It's almost like you put this plant in this industry, and even though we all love chocolate, it does something kind of maybe more energetically to it, so to speak, where it structures it into a more masculine relationship to the plant.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Final Gravity issue 12 is now available in the Bean to Barstool shop. This new issue of our zine, telling personal, human-centered stories from the world of beer, is full of great articles, including Miranda Moore's article about the cultural connotations in South Africa of Carling Black Label Lager, or Brett Cordelletti's profile of the Palestinian brewery Teba, among many others. We believe passionately about this project, and we'd love for you to check it out. You can order individual copies or subscribe on beantobarstool.com. We also now have taproom level subscriptions, so breweries can get a discount on ordering multiple copies of each issue, or you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/beantobarstoolzines. You can also check out our new website for Final Gravity at finalgravityzine.com. Cheers!
Yeah, so in the past international craft chocolate festivals I've been attending to, like Chocoa this last February and Northwest Chocolate Festival in Seattle last October, and in the Salon of Lima, every year there is a only women gathering. So I would say there is more and more craft chocolate brands that are really owned by women. Like I can see more women faces really leading up these brands and presenting their expertise in making craft chocolate. So, and also it's interesting that these festivals are bringing more attention for these women gatherings, no? When they do this festival. So I think that's a plus. And it kind of gives us inspiration also to move forward and create these bigger, bigger audience or a public that wants to connect deeper with women.
Well, let's talk more about this year's summit. Tell us what's going to be involved, what people can expect in terms of speakers or topics. What's going on with Women of Cacao this year?
Woohoo! This is a very exciting topic. You can take it, Fiorella.
Yeah, well, I can start saying that this is our third summit, and we're very excited about this because from this, I mean, from the first to the second summit, we have seen and experienced such an expansion of members, of speakers, of diversity. So in this third summit in September, we're even increasing this more, like these numbers. Like we are working really hard to, yeah, doing cross collaborations, partnerships. I'm really looking forward to expand. And also this year, we're offering a different thing in the first day that we haven't tried in the past two summits, which is the host day. So many of our members asked in the past, hey, I would really like to connect in person with any of the speakers of these countries because let's say I'm based in the Netherlands, and I really want to be able to meet one of the speakers if they are here. So we launched this year the opportunity to be a host in the region that you are at and open this online summit day to them. So they can really experience this together. So that's very exciting for us in this year. And we have 4 clear topics that we want to address. The first one is the wellness ritual day to honor a little bit the history of cacao. And the second one is about conservation and policies making around preservation of the forest, preservation of cacao, certifications. The third day is about technology and innovation. So all the machinery, also all the AI that can be related to tracking the cacao farms, for instance. And the third day is about a cultural day or an art day that we are presenting women that have developed books or music and dance around cacao. So yeah, we're very excited for this diversity, and Eva can add a little bit more of why this year summit is different than the other two ones.
Absolutely. Other than the numbers we've just seen grow mostly organically, but also we have a bigger team now, so that allows us to have a little more capacity to invite cross collaborations such as the host day that she mentioned. So if you are anywhere in the world and want to experience this first day of the summit in person, you can find out the closest host near you and actually go in person and experience this in small cohorts. We have about 100 so far and counting of people who have volunteered to host small cohorts in different regions of the world. And you will, as a group, experience the summit together, do some offline workshopping as well. We have a whole training program that the hosts are going through to be able to navigate how to incorporate a virtual experience in a very in-person, tangible way. But what we've seen so far and the way people are preparing and getting excited and reserving their spaces is very exciting. Again, we've never done this before, and we wanted to do something really special for our third and most likely final year of the summit. Another thing that makes this year unique is, of course, we have had all these incredible speakers from the past, and hopefully they will be joining us this year as guests. So we will now, as our third year, have almost 150 women represented as speakers throughout the 3 years. So quite a collection of experts across different areas, and it's just incredible to see what happens when each of these experts come in a room with other people that have different perspectives. There's always something more to learn. Even in our third year, when we get on these calls with the speakers who are coming in for this year, we always learn something. It's like this, it's never ending. Cacao is the best plant. Chocolate is the best product. That is a metaphor for how our society is doing. Our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, the health of the planet, societies. It really is a little micro example of how everything else is doing. So looking at this is actually talking, as Fiorella mentioned, about politics, about economy, about environmental, about war, everything that's happening, AI, it's all relevant to this industry. And it's just such a beautiful way to connect these conversations without it feeling so overwhelming.
Yeah, I was excited going through the website, looking at past speakers, how many of them I've had as guests on the show. It was like, oh, I've talked to them and I've talked to them. It was quite a list on there.
Any that you're really excited to hear back from this year?
Oh, I mean, I'd have to go back through the list, but like Sarah Barth and Estelle Tracy have both been on the show so many times, so I'm good friends with them. Excited to hear from
Yay.
them. So for people who can't attend in person, how can they participate in this and watch the segments and things?
It's very easy. Womenofcacao.com, open to everyone across industries, across ages, across genders. This online virtual experience is a free live experience, and if you choose to support the movement and support the organization, you can also register as a VIP, which means you get recordings to all of the summit programming from this year and some from last year as well. We also have monthly programming that you're welcome to look into. It's for people who want to dive deeper into any of the topics, but each of the sessions in the summit will be between 45 minutes and 90 minutes long. So you get in one single day a very large diversity of speakers and workshops and connections. And something else we want to try this year is to really have, like, because our numbers are so much bigger than you shared in the past, we're looking for a way to maintain that intimacy between people who are on the call. So we'll be experimenting with quite a bit of breakout rooms. So you'll get to meet intimately other people, even on the screens. Even though we're in a Zoom setting, it'll feel like we're in the same room together. You'll get that one-on-one connection with other people participating.
And just to make this super clear, the summit is online and you can join live for free. So it's open for everybody. But if you want to watch the recordings, then we have a ticket. So you can get it on our website and watch it for the whole next new year. So please join. And only the first day, the hosting day, it's in person if you have the chance that one of the hosts is in your region or around you. And if not, you can also join live because we'll be hosting with Ava the same activities as with the in-person hosts. So just to make it super clear, this is very accessible for everybody just to join.
That's great.
And it takes a full day. We start usually from 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. So we have a full day program that you can just select and join the activities that you are most interested in.
David, I'm curious to hear from you. What themes of cacao are you most interested in learning more about?
Well, being here in North America, I'm have the least familiarity on the agricultural side. So my understanding is primarily academic there rather than experiential. So I feel like hearing from people from origin more about everything that happens before it becomes chocolate, from a maker here in North America is a fascinating thing for me. So that's often where my curiosity lies. How about the two of you? What are you most excited about to learn from the speakers this year? Fiorella, why don't we start with you?
Yes, I love connecting with the diversity of women across the globe. That's what really brings me more exciting, always hearing their stories, always hearing, for instance, yes, here in Ivory Coast, this is where my land is, and this is how my family works with cacao. It excites me, like how different territories have one same passion. It's always very inspiring to hear from them. How their daily work is. And then I also feel like I receive a lot in this summit. Like I get myself so much more involved with the new information I have from the experts in a specific field that I have not known in the past. So it's also like an academical time that I pass with these speakers because I'm a student, So I feel myself like that. And then also I can lead, but it's very balanced the way we are in the summit. So that's what excites me for this year. But also that after this, we might have also a in-person gathering. So that's also bringing me excitement and inspiration.
Ava, how about you?
I would definitely agree with that, and just add that I love getting my hands dirty. I love getting my hands on the tea and the chocolate and doing the tasting with Lila Toth. I love getting my hands on the clay and making the ceramics with Laura. I'm really looking forward to the hands-on component this year, especially since we have that in-person day for some people. And and you can still prepare the materials even if you're not joining in person somewhere. But just, yeah, getting that like sensual integration of the lessons, as you said, like it's rare to be able to be, for people in North America, on at origin, but talking to someone and hearing a story about living in origin while working with the cacao has some kind of profound effect where you feel connected physically. And I just can't wait to eat more chocolate and drink more cacao and listen to all the stories while doing that. So very, very happy that this is going to happen again. And as we mentioned before, it may be our last year, so we're making it very intentionally, just integrated around the world as much as we can. And looking forward to anyone who wants to join us for that.
Fiorella, what story are you telling through Women of Cacao?
They're revaluing cacao as a sacred plant from the country of origin. Here we have such a big, deep culture that through colonization and modern time we're losing. So cacao, for me, it's a plant or it's a medium to reconnect, remember in our consciousness those sacred beliefs, that maintain in Quechua, the native word, there's a term of balanced world, a happy world for everybody, which means, which is a yin kausai. So for me, it's bringing that myth into reality through cacao, and I want to portray this through our community or through my practices. I don't know if I mentioned, but I own a company in Peru that creates ceremonial cacao. So it's a different way to consume cacao, more into a beverage. And it has bring me a lot of joy and expansion in terms of the reality of how we consume food. So this is my offering in this community.
Yeah, I am sharing the story of connecting with nature, a little bit of an expanded version of what Fiorella is saying, is really connecting with yourself as part of nature, connecting with culture as part of nature, connecting with cacao as part of nature, and bringing people back to origin as much as they feel inspired to do that, whether it's physically traveling to origin or spending time there, or even learning more about it, more about the culture and the dynamics that are happening here on the grounds. And also, I have a lot of stories to tell, which is why I've written a book. It's called Cacao, The Myth, Science, History, and Magic of this ancient medicine and modern superfood. So really looking forward to, hopefully this summit, having a done version of that. I've given a preview at the previous summit of what is coming. I've given many previews of kind of the iterations, and it's in a peer review process at the moment. So looking forward to, there's no deadline. I'm doing it myself because I have kids and the summit and other things going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, just really, really excited and honored to be around so many incredible people. I will just remind everyone, as Fiorella mentioned, that you are all welcome to join us for the summit. We encourage you to reach out personally. We maintain an active WhatsApp group for women professionals in cacao and chocolate. If you want to join us there for more one-on-one ongoing conversation, as well as our monthly workshop series that we have, and are just really happy to be here with all of you, and would love to hear your feedback on any of our programming, hear your hopes and dreams for what you would like to learn. If you have something special to present, even if it's past the speaker deadline, let us know. We can always find a way to bring your voice into the conversation. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, David, for the invitation.
Yeah, I can add that I'm also very excited to invite more partners. And this year, we really are open to find more collaborators within our organization. So if any one of you that have an organization or company or brand that resonates with our movement and with our vision, please reach out to us, and we will see the availability to create this collab, because we really are in this line of expansion and growth that we are looking for more support. And please DM us directly to Ava or me, or email to Women of Cacao. That you can find the address on the website. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, David.
Yeah, thank you both for coming on the show today, and we'll look forward to the summit in a few months.
Yes.